Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and this week we are exploring how awkward it is when you are Mr. Boom Shakalaka with Zach Messler. How you doing, Zach?
What's up, Andy? I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. I'm super excited, man. This is awesome. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you on. You know, I got to tell you, just a quick story for our listeners. When I first talked to Zach on the phone, I get this voicemail from a number that I've never heard, and I answer. I listen to the voicemail. It says, "Yo, dude, it's Zach Messler. This is out of the blue." And that was my introduction to the energy and everything that you bring to the table. So why don't you talk a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you're at?
Oh, sure. So I'm a communications guy, right? I help entrepreneurs, I help sales pros, marketers, I guess to a lesser extent, just to be better communicators. And to me, it comes down to three things. It's being clear, being compelling, and being persuasive. So clear, it's pretty obvious, right? How you're understood. If you're clear, you're understood. If you're compelling, you can grab attention and hold on to it. And then especially in sales and marketing, you want to be persuasive. You want to compel people to take action. And so that's what I do. I have a background in product marketing for tech. I've been in B2B tech product marketing for about 20 years. And that's all about translation. It's all about taking these technical things and transforming it into something that salespeople can understand, that a market can really understand, buyers can understand. And when you think about things in that perspective, any idea that you have can be a product. Any idea is something that you want to get across. And so that's why I'm doing this. I believe communications is the most powerful superpower there is. And I want to help people uncover theirs.
That is awesome. And, you know, the way you break it down, you make it seem so simple in the things that you write and share. But we all need that grounding and that help to get back to who is it that we're reaching out to, and am I really saying things in a way that is clear, compelling, and persuasive? Because it's so easy just to share info but not actually have it lead anywhere.
Well, that's very true, and it's pretty rampant. It's still rampant out there. You know, people are marketing and communicating like it's 2006 or 2007, and it's not anymore. And things have changed remarkably. It's not about you.
Mhm. That's a good point. That's really good. It's not about you. And if you're trying to connect with someone and you want them to buy a service, you need to be able to have them understand what you bring to the table for them. You know, it's not about your biography.
That's exactly right. So I'm in the middle, actually, of writing a new post. So I publish posts on zachmessler.com. Right now, all I'm doing there is just publishing. It's create, publish, repeat. And so the post I'm working on right now, I'm talking about this transformation of buyers, really, but people from pre-2007 to today. Because on June 29th, 2007, something happened that changed everybody. And it's the iPhone. The iPhone was released, and our lives have changed forevermore. And you think about it, it's that idea of it's not about you. You think of pre-2007, you go on a vacation, you know, you're at the beach, you see this really cool sailboat in the water, or maybe you see dolphins, you know, diving over the ocean, and you snap a picture and say, check out the dolphins. But today, what happens? You run down to the edge of the water, you put the selfie on, and check it out. Look at me. I'm with the dolphins. It's not about the dolphins. It's about you. And it's the same thing with communication. It's people don't want to be told what they should know. They want to come to it themselves. And it's a nuance, but it's really important to understand that.
No, that's a good distinction, because as much as you want to just tell the story and say, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I offer, if you're not giving anybody the power to themselves to draw those connections, then you're actually kind of robbing them of an experience.
That's a really good way of putting it. And people today expect to be able to have that experience. And if you don't give them that experience, it's seen as not, holding them back, not giving them what they need or what's rightfully theirs in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the company that starts out on their website just talking about all their whiz-bang cool features and all the cool components of their product and how amazing it is. Who cares?
Right. Yeah, and people read through that and move on pretty quickly, as you've stated. One of, I think, my favorite posts that I saw of yours, or maybe it was a favorite just because it was more early on when I was getting to know you, was your I think I first saw it as a tweet, and it was basically stating three things: what something is, what it does, and I'm forgetting the third one, or who it'll affect.
Oh, why it matters. Why it matters.
Why it matters.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that simple thing helped me rethink, okay, what is it that I'm doing? I think I tweeted you, this is a tweet, it gets Zach's attention, hopefully it makes his day. But it's such a simple way to boil it down that really communication is about helping people understand. So
that's and what you just shared is that's my formula for clarity. That's clear. It's getting to the essence of something. And when you can get to the essence of something, when you understand something so deeply, that's when you can explain it really well and you can riff on it as you need to. That came to me. It's what it is, what it does, and why it matters. And it's incredibly simple, but it's not always so easy to do. But it's the idea behind it. The idea behind it is, again, it's to get to the essence of whatever your idea, your product, your offering is.
Right. To me, that's like the flux capacitor of communication right there.
Oh, I like it.
I knew that you're just enough of a sci-fi guy that you'd be cool with that. So Zach, what is it that got you so excited about communication? Do you have something that kind of sparked for you, or did it just something that you stumbled into?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, I started out as a trade show guy for an arm of GE, and I always just dug the interactions at a trade show. I'm kind of sick and twisted. I love trade shows. But I love the interactions going on. I started out as the logistics guy, just setting stuff up, and then quickly just ramped into Marcom and messaging and sales training and sales enablement, and I just dug it. And, I was in B2B for years and years, and it really wasn't until it was really just this last job that I had where I'd been doing just traditional B2B for a long time and product marketing for a long time. And, it just, something happened where I just decided, you know what, I'm going to try something a little different. And I just tried things that I always wanted to do but never really had the guts to do because I was a little worried about what was going to happen or how people were going to view me. And so I kind of just threw caution to the wind and things just really clicked. And the second I did that was when things started for me professionally, just started blowing up and going really well. I mean, I think I had this fear. A lot of what I do is boiling things down to simple elements. And I think I was a little scared that it was too simple, that of course everybody knows this stuff because this is simple. And I didn't want to seem stupid. But, I took a risk. I put stuff out there, and lo and behold, no, it's not easy for a lot of people. So there we are. Here we are.
Right. Well, and the world is such an overcomplicated place that I think that people do just need help getting rid of the distraction and realizing how simple some solutions are.
For sure.
It's interesting to me that you mentioned – or go ahead.
To explain something complex, you don't have to dive into the complexity. That's like the worst thing to do. If you can make it simple, people engage more.
Yeah, that's really a good point, because I think we see so much information and everybody's posting and everybody's got some sort of YouTube channel or something trying to explain everything, getting into all the details. And so people, I think there's this expectation in the world now that you have to be an expert in all these fields, or if you're going to talk about it, you need to have done all this research or share all this information. And yet just dumbing it down and making it simpler, and the KISS method, it's like that's actually what moves the needle even further.
But it's not even dumbing it down per se, right? It's taking. I don't like to look at it as dumbing it down, because I don't think that does it justice. It's taking it up a level, right? If getting into the nuances and getting into the minutia is 20,000 feet, as they like to say in B2B circles.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the 20,000 foot level. If or 10,000. Then we're talking like 100,000, 200,000 foot level, like way up in the stratosphere, right?
Oh,
so
right.
You can't see. So if you think about looking at the world from 200,000 feet, you can't really see too much. You can explain what you see, but you can't really see too much. You can still explain things, and you're forced to be more simple. You're forced to have an easier to understand perspective. And then once you get that audience and the audience understanding, and you're engaging them, because you're putting on this layer of compelling, right? You're putting on this layer of persuasion. Then what happens is people want to know more, and then they ask for that detail, and that's when that detail comes in. It's not that you don't want to have detail. You need to have detail, but there's a time for it.
Sure. It's interesting you talk about stepping further away to get a little better perspective, because I've been with several companies that have merged, or I've been on both sides of it, or an outsider looking in, and it's always interesting how much of a surprise it is to the employees when the company merges, and yet the people who are on the outside can see what's going on, because you can see those movements happening. And I think in business a lot of times the outside perspective, so something else you mentioned.
That's the why it matters. That's the why it matters in that paradigm. That's the what it is, what it does, why it matters. Why it matters is always from the buyer perspective. And don't get hung up. It's not something to get hung up with the word buyer. A buyer is not necessarily someone who pays you for something. A buyer can be someone that you're trying to convince of an idea. It's the buyer of the idea. So it's why it matters to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And
it could be, as a parent, it could be your kids you're trying to get to understand something.
Absolutely. And look, you may create something the same way, for different audiences in very different ways. The what it is and what it does could be very similar, but the why it matters could be dramatically different. And so when I'm doing product messaging for B2B clients, for tech clients, right? If we do a messaging exercise where we're boiling everything down into what it is, what it does, why it matters, that why it matters for a salesperson who we're trying to get to convince to use this methodology is going to be very different than the why it matters for the buyer of the product, right? So for example, if there's a new feature that we're rolling out for our product, and it's something we know that our clients have been asking for a long time. To the client, the why it matters is going to be why we know why this feature matters, because we have insight on why people have been asking for it. For the salesperson, the why it matters is share this information. You're going to make more money. That's why it matters. And then they're going to want to dive in, understand it, and share that information, because you're getting to the crux of why any of this matters for that individual. Two very different, same feature, two very different why it matters.
Right. Yeah, and that's really the art of marketing is it comes back to that first thing you said. It's not about you. It's about understanding the people that are reaching out to you.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
So, Zach, one thing I like to put everybody on the spot is I like to find out what is it that is something that you have felt awkward about in your life that you've kind of had to either get over or deal with, or maybe even better, you've taken and run with it, and that's kind of become who you are.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I kind of touched on it before. I mean, I had always been kind of a behind the scenes type of marketer, messaging guy, and I had a dare. It was, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was when I was working at this last company where I was. I had someone on my team who was wise beyond her years. I say boom shakalaka. I use 80s references, 90s references a lot. That's why that Back to the Future, flux capacitor was right up my alley. But we're going to celebrate something. Boom shakalaka. I'll send an email out or whatever. And so this woman dared me. She's like, I dare you to write a piece on boom shakalaka. Like, I'm not going to put this out there. And she dared me. She dared me. So I did it. And
you can't not take a dare.
Exactly. So I did it. I was a little nervous about it, but I did it. And remarkably, I didn't expect this, it was really well received. Business could use more boom shakalaka. And I just talked about it. I talked about the myself and 80s and growing up and where this come from and why I think that business in general is too buttoned up and could really use some more boom shakalaka. And boom shakalaka is excitement and it's positivity and it's winning and it's all these great things. And too often business is just, especially B2B world, it's too buttoned up. It's too buttoned up. So I put that out there. And again, it got a pretty good response. And then she came back to me. She's like, that got a pretty good response. I dare you to incorporate boom shakalaka into your LinkedIn profile. So again, it's like, but I did it. And then I started getting more views. I started using the hashtag all over LinkedIn and on Twitter, and I spell it a little differently. It's just more phonetic, and I've always spelled it this way. Somebody told me I spelled it wrong, which kind of cracked me up. I didn't know there was a right way to spell boom shakalaka. So I do SHOCKALOCKA, boom shakalaka. And then it just became a thing. And that dare was one of the things that really got me to come out of my shell and just be, right? The big thing these days in personal branding is be authentic. Which is kind of goofy to say. But with me, it really is what you see is what you get. I send emails out to people subscribed to my list, and the first email, really any email you get from me is going to be, yo, Andy, or yo, fill in your name here.
And, as silly as that is, it's so refreshing because it's like you're really talking to a real person who's interacting with you the way they would talk to their friends and family. And it feels so much better.
Oh, well, that's the thing, right? I mean, there was a thing a while ago. I saw it a long time ago. The whole H to H or human to human, or there's no B2C and B2B. And it got kind of silly, but it's true. And it goes back to that whole idea about the iPhone, about 2007 versus today, because everybody's a consumer. Everybody's a consumer. And it doesn't matter if you're buying a multi-million-dollar enterprise technology platform. You're still a consumer. It's a little more complex. B2B is more complex than B2C, but everyone's a consumer.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned how much you fell in love with the trade show experience, because I always felt kind of weird, enjoying the trade shows myself, because it's a drain on your system. It's a lot of work, and you're dealing with people pouring through who have varying levels of interest. But when you step back and look at the connection between the product you're trying to sell and the people who are walking by who might not even know they need it or didn't have any interest in it before they get to you, it's a really good test to see how the individual consumer is going to receive that product or the interaction or the way it's marketed.
Absolutely. It's a testing ground. That's why I love it so much. I mean, I used to always tell people on my team to go to trade shows. We'd send them to trade shows. And even now, you know, I have a couple different sides of what I'm doing. One is really focused on B2B and small businesses. And the other one's focused more on individuals. That's the ZachMessler.com stuff. But for my clients, you know, I did a messaging workshop a couple of weeks ago in Montreal at a client site. And one of the things we talked about was events, and talked about, you know, they're not doing a ton of trade shows, but I advise them, go. They don't even pay to, like, don't even have a booth. Just go and talk to people and test messages out. And because there is no bad circumstance from that. There's no bad result from that. You learn.
Totally.
If it bombs, then it bombs. You know not to use it. But if it doesn't, you know, and you can ask people questions. When you ask people questions on a one-to-one basis and get that, it's a little more intimate than one-on-one at an event than it is in an email or even on a phone call. And you can dig in and really learn a lot.
Oh, for sure. So before we get too far, too close to the end here, I wanted to make sure that all of our listeners have a chance to know where to find you. I have your Twitter at capital ZMESSLER, Z Messler. You can follow Zach there. Check out his website at ZachMessler.com, and it is ZACH Messler.com. And follow you on LinkedIn. You got some good stuff you're putting out there too. So, anywhere else that we should be tracking you down?
No, that's pretty much it right now. I keep holding back from starting up on Instagram. I might have to do that, but not really ready yet. But
there's a learning curve for every social media site you add.
Yeah, for sure.
And what do you have coming up, or what are the latest things people can check out there? I know you just launched Profile.
So right now I have a bunch of blogs at ZachMessler.com. I just sent out a couple weeks ago the ultimate guide to a killer LinkedIn profile, how to be more clear, compelling, and persuasive selling the product of you. And the idea behind it is, let's take these principles, clear, how to be more clear, more compelling, and more persuasive, and apply it to you, to your LinkedIn profile. A LinkedIn profile is product marketing. You're the product. And so I put together a guide. I wanted it to be, and I don't say this loosely, I really wanted it to be the best piece of free information about building a killer LinkedIn profile anywhere on the internet. And I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out if that's it or not. It's about 134 pages. Not about. It is 134 pages. It's content. It's exercises. It's templates. And it's my approach. It's just an approach to build a killer LinkedIn profile. So that's available right now as a PDF. It's not on my website just yet, but it will be probably within the next week or so. I'm slowly dripping that out. The PDF went to folks that signed up early, but again, it will be out probably within the next week or two. I'd set a deadline for myself of September 30th, so that's 10 days. So it'll be out on the website. So if you start searching for it, you'll find it. And then if you want the templates, or you want a single PDF instead of a bunch of web pages, then you can certainly sign up for it and get it there.
All right, yeah, and I can testify. I was one of the folks that signed up early to get it, and it's a great piece. I'm still working my way through some of the exercises. It's got really good practical information in it that really makes you rethink, how am I putting myself out into the world, and what am I expecting to get out of it? So what am I going to put into it?
It's all marketing, baby.
Oh yeah. So any new dares that you have where anyone's daring you to do something that you're going to jump on?
No, not yet. But I have a feeling that some might come out of this podcast.
They might, yeah. The wheels are turning right now. I'm thinking I should have had one prepared.
Pretty awesome.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that comes down to compelling, right? So the approach I have for compelling is to be compelling is less about being creative and more about being brave and more about being willing to take a chance and willing to take a risk. It's the idea of it's internalizing the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? If I go do this, what's the worst thing that could happen? And usually people have great ideas, but they think it's stupid, or they're scared about what the effect's going to be, or they're scared about harming their brand. And really, the odds are the worst thing that happens is nothing.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting.
The best thing that happens, the best thing that happens is you can't even think about it. Wild things happen when you try crazy stuff.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. This is the third episode we've had, and every single episode, people talk about fears in one way or another, and how much that holds people back for no reason.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and you talked about the bravery that it took for you to step out of the traditional role you were in, because you had all those insecurities right away. Are people going to care? Do I have anything special? Is it too simple? And yet, look at what you're doing. It's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean it's fun. But you're right though. Without that bravery, without being able to step out of your comfort zone, then nothing happens. Or maybe not nothing happens, but if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you'll never know what could have happened. And I think that's part of what drives me.
Well, yes, it's one of my favorite quotes, and I'm not sure where I originally saw it, but it's basically that, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the fact that you move forward in spite of the fear that you have.
That's awesome. It's true.
Yeah, it changes your perspective on thinking about, if I'm afraid of something, I must not have courage. It's like, no, that's what makes you courageous, that you still move forward. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never. If I didn't have that dare, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd still be working. I jumped from my corporate gig about a year ago, and I'm not looking back. And if I hadn't taken up on that dare, I'd probably be in the same place, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just very different. And I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do now.
Well, it's when I talk to people that are pursuing their passion, like talking to you, it's obvious how excited you are about what you're doing. There's no holding back. You can't even hold back what you want to share about it, because it's obviously something that is important to you.
Oh, it's fun. I love this stuff.
All right. So what's been the biggest thing you've learned since you've stepped into doing this on your own?
Well, that is a heavy question. I'll try to keep that one brief. Holy cow. Man. It's really that, and this was the biggest transition. Anything's possible, right? There are no rules holding me back. There are no regulations. I don't have to worry about politics or who's going to be offended or who's. I don't worry about that stuff anymore. I used to worry about that stuff, or how it's going to affect my job, or should I worry about how an action is going to, what the result of an action is going to be. I don't think about that stuff anymore. And it's a blessing and a curse, because I can do anything. And when you're on your own, you can do anything. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
And that's a great thing. But the downside, the flip side of that is you can do anything you want. And so,
yeah, exactly.
For me, it's like the toughest thing for me is honing that, okay, I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to see this through fruition. I saw part of this back in April. I don't know if you saw this. Back in April, I did a survey. I'm doing a report. I'm working on it now, finally.
Oh,
but,
I did see your survey.
On the hidden barriers. Yeah, the hidden barriers to great communications. And I'm bringing it back now. But I started down that path, and then it was like, wow, this is really hard to pull together. There's so much data here. I'm going to put this on hold for a while. And that was,
right.
that was back in April. So that's what I mean. Like you can do anything you want, and that's a blessing, and sometimes that can be a curse.
For sure. Well, hey, we are running down to the last couple seconds here, so I just want to say I really appreciate you being on. And Zach, all the links to Zach are in the post. So you guys, thanks for being on.
Boom, shakalaka. Thank you, Andy. This is awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.